اتنے لگی زینب بڑائے ہو او کھینچی جو شہن آہا دل بے قرار سے او نکلی تڑپ کے فاطمہ زہرا مزار سے او دوڑے ادھر سے رن کی طرف سید امم او آئے ادھر سے حیدر صفدر بچشم نام او آواز دی نبی نے کہ حر کو لیے ہے ہم او اس وقت پہنچے شاہ کے وہ تھوڑے تھا دم اور سر کاٹنے کی فکر میں جو تھے وہ ہاتھ گئے اور مہما سے اپنے دوڑ کے حضرت لپٹ گئے اور زانو پھڑک لیا سڑے حر اور یہ کہا اور بھائی حسین آیا ہے آہوش میں ذرا او آنکھیں قدم سے مل کے پکارا وہ خیر خواہ او مولا ہزار جان سے میں آپ پر فدا اور جس کے لیے زمین پا ملک سر جھکاتے ہیں اور وہ لوگ خلد سے میرے لینے کو آتے ہیں سینے پر برچی کھا چکا صلوات
Please recite salawat. Just two quick announcements, or three quick announcements to make. Many of you know we've started a Slido Q&A page. It is posted. The link is posted in the English WhatsApp group chat. If you're not in it, please come see either me or Brother Fazl Naqvi, and we will gladly add you to it. We are currently looking for volunteers to help us with reciting. As you guys know, every day we have, the recitation of the Holy Quran. We have Salam, we have Noha, Ziyarat Ashura. So if you would like to participate, please let us know. We will gladly add you to the list. We thank all the sponsors who have made these English programs possible. Your donations have helped us greatly. If anyone wishes to donate for this English program or upcoming future English programs, please come see either me or Brother Ali Naqvi. Your donations are greatly appreciated. I will now invite our guest scholar, Sayyid Hasan Rizvi, to recite the majlis. Please welcome him with a loud salawat.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين أما بعد صلوات على محمد وعلى محمد Mu'mineen, mu'minat, brothers and sisters in Islam and Iman, salamun alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As we continue to talk about the Muslim or Islamic identity, our true identity that we're supposed to try our best to strengthen after we have lost it. We've talked about what identity actually entails, those three main questions: where do we come from, what do we do while we're here, or where are we right now, and where are we going after this. We talked about some of the reasons, three basic reasons why we have lost that identity. Right? We talked about how sometimes our tarbiyah, the way that we've been brought up, our upbringing, our parenting, is one that pushes us away from Islam, away from the Ahlul Bayt, not towards it. We talked about our friend circle, people that we keep around us, holding us back from our true identity. And we also talked about the systems of education around us that sometimes also hold us back. And then last night, we tried to go a bit deeper and look at the main root issue that gives us that identity crisis and confusion. And it was about the idea of purpose. That we get lost in this dunya that we've been sent down in, and we think our purpose is just for this place, and we forget about our higher purpose. That Allah has sent us down as a Khalifa on His behalf to manifest, to live His names, His Asma al-Husna, and to be that light for everyone else, and to spread that hidayah that He has gifted and blessed all of us with. We talked about how this dunya, this world, is a game, right? How it's described in the Quran. And although we're not going to go through all the Slido questions, I think the plan was to dedicate one specific night for all of that, which inshallah I guess they'll announce when we figure out which night that'll be. But as I was looking through the questions before, someone had asked, because we didn't give the surah and ayah number for the ayah which talks about the dunya being a place of just games and playing and amusement. So I wanted to share that since somebody did ask, so that it's still fresh in our minds. So this idea of the dunya being a place of distraction and amusement, just a game, is mentioned multiple times in the Quran in different versions. I'll just share a few of them and kind of lead up from the chronologically in the Quran. And the final ayah is one where there's a bit more details that are mentioned. So the first one is in Surah Al-An'am, Surah 6, Ayah 32. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا لَعِبْ وَلَهْوٌ. So this dunya, or this life of this dunya, this worldly life, is nothing except la'ib, meaning a game or amusement, and lahu, distraction and diversion. I'm just reading the part that's, because it's just a part of the ayah. I'm going to read the rest too, but there's more to the ayah, but I'll leave it out for now. The next time it shows up is in Surah Al-Ankabut, Surah 29, Ayah 64. And pretty much the same thing, except the last two parts are switched. وَمَا هَذِهِ الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا لَهْوٌ وَلَعِبٌ. And this dunyawi life, this worldly material life, is nothing except lahu, distraction, diversion, and la'ib, a game, amusement, play. Right? Again, I'm not reading the rest of the ayah. You can read on your own if you're interested. Again, in much stricter usage, Allah mentions it again in Surah Muhammad, Surah 47. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala. Surah 47, Ayah 36. Sorry? Oh, you're asking, I don't know, man. 47? I have no idea. I don't have that memorized, unfortunately. And it's not here what I'm looking at. Okay. إِنَّمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا لَعِبٌ وَلَهْوٌ. The only thing that this worldly life is, the only thing is la'ib, game, play, amusement, and lahu, distraction. And then the final, this is no, there's two more, sorry. Or is this the last one? There is, let me see. Yeah, this is the last one. This is in Surah Al-Hadid, Surah 57, Ayah 20. And this one again is the most detailed, and where Allah really gives a lot more details about the dunya. So it begins, i'lamu, know, annama al-hayatu dunya, know that the life of this world is what? La'ib wa lahu. That it's game, sport, amusement, and lahu, distraction. But then Allah continues, wa zina. It's also a zinat, meaning decoration, adornment, makeup, like something like that, right? It's something that just tries to cover up the defects of what's on the surface, right? That's what a decoration is. Right? Zinat literally means you have something that's plain looking, it's got nothing there, and then you have to add something to actually try to bring out what we call fake beauty, right? That's the idea. What else is it? It's وَتَفَاخُرٌ بَيْنَكُمْ. The dunya is also a place where people just do iftikhar between each other, meaning they're competing, showing off to see who's better, right? And finally Allah says, وَالتَّكَاثُرٌ فِي الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَوْلَادِ. And it's also a place where people are just trying to compete and show off who has more wealth and who has more children. Now, the wealth part, I think we understand that's timeless. People still do that now. The children part, we may not understand that necessarily, especially nowadays. There's this movement of not having kids. But keep the historical context that in previous times where your tribe was better if it had more people, and specifically more sons, more men, because you had to fight other tribes. Daughters weren't fighting other tribes, it was only your sons fighting tribes. This is one of the reasons why they didn't want daughters, because daughters weren't going to help you out in terms of tribal warfare. Only sons would actually go to war, right? So they would argue and say, look how many sons I have, meaning I've got a bigger tribe than you, I can beat you if I want to, and we can take control of you. I don't want to go fully into the historical context, but just to give you some background in case you weren't sure why this wealth and children was always mentioned, this is at least the historical reason for the Arabs back then. Okay, salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So I'll try to pay attention to Slido every day when I'm prepping. If I notice there's a question that's related to the previous night, I'll try to answer it if possible. If it's something that can be answered quickly, just so it's kind of fresh in our minds. But some of the other questions that were there were some were unrelated, or they were important questions, but they'll probably take more time to answer. So we'll leave them till when we have that specific Q&A night, inshallah ta'ala. One more salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Okay, so now back to our topic. So we said now, hopefully we understand the essential problems, why we've lost our identity, but now we're like, okay, let's be proactive, let's get it back now. How do we strengthen this? We mentioned a hadith a few nights ago that the first Imam says, the best type of iman someone can get, afdalul iman, husnul iqan, is getting certainty. Like, okay, so let's rebuild our certainty then. Let's make sure we have yaqeen in our belief system. Okay, which beliefs? Well, we already talked about that. Imam Ali told us about that, and we said those are the three main identity questions. Where do we come from? Allah, meaning we need to reassert our tawheed, reaffirm that first and foremost, right, before we get to the other questions. Now, okay, we're supposed to do that, but some people might say, all right, what else do we reassert and reaffirm in tawheed? What is there to strengthen? There's one God, one Allah, and that's it. I believe in that, and that's it, I'm done. I don't believe in 2 gods or 1,000 gods. I don't believe that anything or anybody made Allah. I don't do any sort of shirk. I don't even entertain the idea, right? I don't believe in idols. I don't do anything like that. So what do you mean strengthen an idea of tawheed? Like, what else is there? It's one God, right? You're either a monotheist or a polytheist, or atheist, I guess. But okay, I'm a monotheist. Okay, let's move on to the next thing. So that's usually in our minds when it comes to tawheed, right? That's easy, right? One God and I'm done. Let's move on now. But when you look at the riwayat by the Ahlul Bayt, the picture that they paint for us is that you can't just gloss over tawheed that quickly. Let me just share 2 examples. First one is from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. He's reported to have said, "At-tawheed nisfuddin." Tawheed is half of your deen, half your religion. Now, okay, hold on a second. Do you mean to tell me, if I understand this properly, that half of our deen, half of our religion, is just believing that there's one God? That's it? All I have to do is, there's one God, and I'm done? No, half of it's done? Kind of seems really simplistic, doesn't it? It seems really, really simple. Do you really think that religion would be so easy? Believe in one God, all right, you're 50%, done. It doesn't seem like it's there. Well, there's another hadith, this one from Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam, which ties into this, adds a bit more onto what Rasulullah said, and ties into our question about identity and identity loss. So he's reported to have said, "At-tawheed hayatun nafs." Tawheed is the life, hayat, of our what? Our nafs. What did Allah say in the ayat in Surah Al-Hashr that we went through on the first few nights? وَلَا تَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ نَسُوا اللَّهَ. Don't be like those who forgot about Allah, because what happens? فَأَنْسَاهُمْ أَنفُسَهُمْ. You forget Allah, then Allah says, I'm going to make you forget your nafs, meaning who you are. What is Imam Ali saying over here? You want that life of your nafs back? Where is it from? It's from Tawheed. Tawheed is that life force, that life blood of our nafs. That's what drives our identity. If this is not solidified, no matter how much Quran, how much Nahjul Balagha, Sahifa Sajadiyya, poetry, you can add whatever else you want. With weak Tawheed, everything else becomes weakened. And look, we don't like to give Wahhabis and Salafis ammunition. I don't want to do that. They're wrong on, let's say, 99.999% of what they say, right? I mean, they got one Allah right, I guess, and they got a Quran, which is cool. But most of the other stuff they got wrong. But sometimes they do level this accusation against us and say, why aren't you guys talking about Tawheed? Right? You guys just like skip this, and especially sometimes we, followers and lovers of Ahlul Bayt, sometimes we skip Quran too, and we jump right to the Ahlul Bayt. We don't want to take it generalized, but let's be humble and honest. Is that true? Maybe. You know, some ulama say, it seems as if we, the Shi'as, the lovers and followers of the Ahlul Bayt, we took the Ahlul Bayt and then we ran away and we're like, oh, that's all we need, we're done. And it seems as though the Ahlul Sunnah said, we'll take the Quran and then we'll run the other way. I said, hold on, there's a thaqalain over here, right? You can't just take one piece and run, both of these have to be together. And that main idea, that glue that binds all this together is Tawheed. Without proper Tawheed, the Quran's not going to make sense. Without proper Tawheed, the riwayat of the Ahlul Bayt are not going to make sense. And this is where you see both Sunnis and Shias, and of course non-Muslims as well, with a strange idea about Allah and God. That's where they start to divert and go off a weird path. Right? If you think that Allah can be 3 in 1, like who? Like many Christians, right, who believe in a Trinity. They believe that God is what? A triple changer, right? Most of you know what a triple changer is. It's a type of transformer that has 3 total forms, right? Robot form and usually 2 other forms. Right? Like Astro Chain. Right? You know Astro Chain, right? No, you don't know what Astro Chain is. He has a spaceship mode and a train mode and a robot mode. Okay, Astro Chain. Anyway, that's G1 Transformers, not Michael Bay stuff. Although I don't know if Michael Bay incorporated triple changers in his movies. I'm not a Michael Bay fan, but khair, we'll talk about that in another lecture. Don't worry. Okay. So, many people have this very strange idea about God. Right? He's 3 in 1, and 1 in 3, and he can be born and die and all this other stuff. Na'udhu billah. Or some other people believe that Allah has a face and a hand and a body, and Allah gets sad and he gets happy and he smiles and he falls down and he has a throne and sits on a chair. So there are very strange ideas about Tawheed and God that exists amongst people. So when you have a weird starting point, then everything else is going to end up strange too, right? So we have to make sure we solidify this amongst ourselves too. So, now, again, us as parents and some of you who have learned this stuff from when we were babies, when we were kids, we're like, okay, but what else is there? How can this be half of our religion? How is this our lifeblood and life force? What else is left for Tawheed? And it's because the concept that we have in our mind about Tawheed, from at that point, we've kind of missed out a little bit. Let me explain a bit more. If you can recite a salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Okay. Let's refresh our memories here. When any of us have been taught, and parents, when we typically have taught our kids about Tawheed, we teach them about Islam, usually we start with Tawheed. Right? From when they're babies, from when they're infants, right? When we want to get them to start repeating things. What's the first 2-word phrase that typically we tell our children right in the beginning, right? When we're trying to teach them some level of deen. Allah ek, right? God is one, right? Allah ek. And that's it. We have them repeat it over and over again. That's the first thing. Allah ek. God is one, right? Can I tell you a dad joke? Is that allowed here? Dad jokes are okay? I'll do 1 a night, and that's the max, I promise, right? Only 1 a night. So, Muslim parents, right? When they're putting their kids to sleep, what do they have their kids repeat first? Allah ek. Well, oh yeah, Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim, sure. Okay. But they do say what? Allah ek, right? God is one. Have you ever thought about what other people of other religions make their kids say at night before they go to sleep? Other religions have their own stuff, obviously, right? We can imagine what Christians probably do, Father, Son, Holy Ghost, all that stuff, right? I don't know what Jews do, I have no idea. Scientologists, I'm not sure. You ever think about what atheists do when they put their kids to sleep? If Muslims are telling their kids, Allah ek, maybe atheists are doing Allah fake. I don't know, right? That's the one dad joke. I'm not going to do any more, I promise, right? Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. All right, I might do one or two more, but I'll try to spread it out through the rest of the nights, inshallah, right? Sorry. Okay. So therein lies our problem. We say, okay, Allah is one, God is one, and then we're done. We don't say anything else after that. All right, you got it? God is one? Yeah, I got it. Okay, let's move on now. Let's start talking about prophets and imams and all this stuff in Quran and memorize this surah. So for all of us, we're like, okay, I got it. God is one, we're done. Now think about this. When we think about the word tawheed, what is the translation that comes in your mind? What does tawheed mean? Go ahead, say it out loud, it's okay. Oneness of God. There's a fancy word that's used sometimes too, right? Begins with an M. Monotheism. Hasan, right? Monotheism. In most books, that's what you'll typically see, right? Either oneness of God or it's monotheism. Tawheed equals monotheism, which is what? It's just a belief. We'll say shirk is polytheism. Tawheed is monotheism, meaning believing in one God. And that's how we tell everybody, Tawheed means believe in one God, you're done. Okay. Is it wrong? No, it's not wrong. It's just lacking, it's deficient, it's missing some major pieces here. And the way that we can figure out what else is left is, it's simple. All we have to do, we don't have to do some weird mental gymnastics and play some games. All we have to do is look at the actual Arabic. Everything that Allah needs us to understand, He put in the Arabic words for us. The Arabic is very, very clear. Right? Arabic, as many say, is a precise mathematical language. It's used of root letters and forms and patterns, that's how it is. And for every pattern and form, there's a very specific meaning that you get from it, right? So, there is a pattern in Arabic called taf'il. Taf'il. You can take any set of root letters, you plug it into that little pattern of taf'il, and then you can make a bunch of words from it, right? And I'm sure all of you have some examples in your mind, right? So, what's the first action that we do when we start our namaz? Yeah. Before that, there's something. What do we call it when you say Allahu Akbar? What is that called? Takbir, right? So there's your first example of takbir. Takbir, the root letters are kaf, ba, ra. Kabr, right? Kibr also comes from that, right? Same root too. Takabbur. Takbir is what? Is making something or magnifying something and explaining that something's big, right? That's the idea. Takbir, we're glorifying, magnifying Allah. Explaining to people that He's larger than life, right? Something like that. So that's takbir. So there's all these taf'il type words. Anybody else think of any other examples of that? Tawheed? Yeah, man, that's the point. That's what we're talking about, yeah. So that's there. We'll get to that at the end. So that's good. Any other examples you have in your mind? Ta'aleem. Ta'aleem is a perfect example. Ta'aleem comes from ilm. So what does ta'aleem mean? It's giving out ilm, right? It's an action, you're giving out ilm. It's education, that's what it is, right? Okay. When we finish our salah, what is the most recommended action to do the minute your salah is finished? Tasbih, right? Tasbih is related to the same word as sub and saying subhanallah, right? It's glorifying Allah. So tasbih is what? It's an action that we're doing. When we bury somebody, what is that called? Tadfeen. It's the act of doing dafan. You're burying somebody. There is there's some examples I can't give because they might be a little controversial, right? Talqeen. Talqeen, for those who know, is when during the janazah process, when you're sitting by the grave, there's these words that are recited, right? To remind that person who's now being buried and for everybody else to remember their Lord, their book, and all those things. That's called talqeen, ahsant, right? When somebody is trying to explain something, especially when they're trying to explain deeper meanings of the Quran, what is that called? Tafsir, right? It's to clarify it and to... So all of these so far are what? They're actions, right? Takbir is something that you have to say. Tasbih is something that you're doing. Talqeen is something you're reciting. Every single one of these is an action, right? What do Wahhabis do of us all the time? When they call us a kafir, what is that called? Takfir. It's an action. I'm calling you a kafir. That's called takfir. So any root letters you get, you plug it into that form, it's an action. Now, hold on. This pattern, every single word, in English this is called a verbal noun, right? Every single one of them is an action. You're doing something. Now, hold on, we go back to Tawheed. And you're saying that, oh, it's just a belief in monotheism. It's just believing that God is one. But where's the action? We missed something there. What's the root word and root letter? What's the root thing of Tawheed? It's wahda, right? Unity, oneness. Tawheed has to be in action. It's something that you and I have to practice and do constantly. We don't believe in Tawheed, we practice Tawheed. You perform Tawheed. And what is that? Is to try to understand that everything is a reflection of Allah, bringing that unity in reality. That's what Tawheed actually means. Understanding that all of this is just a reflection of Allah. Now, in case your shirk radar went off, I'm not saying everything is Allah, right? No, everything is not Allah, but everything is His manifestation. It's His reflection. It's a reflection of His nur. All of us, everything that's out there. But sometimes what we end up doing is the opposite of Tawheed. Anybody know what is the actual opposite of Tawheed? It's not shirk. No, not exactly, right? Takfir, ahsant. Takfir comes from kathra, kasrat. Kasrat is what? Multiplicity. Takfir is when you start to identify everything as separate. 1, 2, 3, 4, you start to multiply things. What's the opposite of multiplying is bringing everything into oneness. So takfir is what we end up doing constantly. This is separate, that's separate, you're separate. I don't consider it part of Allah, an extension of Allah's names, an extension of His nur and His light. I don't see it like that. I see it as, right, something else. And the greatest example of this, the first time you really see this, and Allah wants us to know this in the Quran, is the first time you see somebody make this separation between a creation of Allah and Allah. Anybody know what story this would be in the Quran? Probably haven't heard it like this. Let me explain after salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. What is, if we're talking about in chronological terms, what's the actual first story in the Quran? Iblis, right? Shaitan. It's his fall, right? That's the first story in terms of time. Before the prophets, obviously, before Adam, right? Now, you and I have probably heard the story of Iblis, the fall of Shaitan, all this many times, I'm sure. And we hear typically the same explanation, I'd say, right? And I've heard this explanation going up too. That Iblis was there, Allah now takes this dirt, clay, whatever, is forming Adam. He's telling the angels and Iblis, look what I made, this is going to be the Khalifa, and do what? Do sujood. Bow down. Angels say, yes sir, and they bow down. Sir meaning, sorry, God doesn't have a pronoun, I don't want to say that, but you know. The only thing that's genderless is Allah, let me put it that way, right? He's not on the gender spectrum, right? Humans are, by the way, okay. So, angels all bow down, they do sujood. But Iblis was like, no way, not happening. I'm not going to do it. Aba wastakbar wa kana min al-kafirin. He's like, I'm not bowing down to this. What is typically, from the minbar sometimes, very innocently I'd say, is the explanation or the words sometimes that are used. Shaitan, I've heard this again, Shaitan was being racist. It was racism. I was like, racism? What are you talking about? Shaitan as a jinn was being racist against humans? Like, what does that mean? Was he upset? Was he saying, all, jinn lives matter? Like, what is this? Stop taking modern day ideas and throwing it back onto, Quranic stories. That's not how it works. People love to do that sometimes. There's an issue or a problem in our society, and they back project it onto the Quran, onto the Ahlul Bayt. That's not how we do it. Right? We should let the Quran speak for itself. That's what Alamat Abad-Dabai, Qaddasallahu Sirru says. The Quran speaks for itself. Don't start force-feeding your own stuff in there. Don't make the Quran your book. Allah's saying, look, you change your mind from the Quran. Don't make the Quran change its mind. That's not how it works. Anyway, some people say, oh, it's takabbur, it's arrogance. Yes, that's a way you can describe it. That's how Allah describes it too. That He acted arrogantly. He rejected and acted arrogantly. But one of our teachers in Qom had mentioned, it's something deeper than this. And he says it himself. He says, when Allah is saying that, this is my Khalifa, I mention him, he says, Ana khayrun minhu. I am better than him. So one of our teachers was describing this, saying that the first word that's coming out of his mouth in terms of his explanation is what? It's ana, the ego, the nafs. He says, I am better minhu, him. He didn't see Adam as a manifestation of Allah, as a makhluk Allah, as a creation, as an extension of Allah's lights and names. What does he see? It's like, me, I'm separate from you, Allah, and so is this thing. That's takfir. If he saw it as tawheed, then he wouldn't let his aql get in the way. His fake aql, basically, right? The issue that shaitan has is actually rationality. Now you might be like, what do you mean? Isn't being rational and logical a good thing? Well, no. What we see over here in this story is that that was the issue. Yeah, you have a question or a comment or... Jealousy? Well, what do you think? What do you mean? Why do you say jealousy? Yeah. So, that's a good point. I'm going to explain it now. If you can recite a salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. You're going to steal my job, you know that, man? You're doing... Did you look at the notes beforehand? What are you doing? Okay. So, let's for a second, pun intended, play devil's advocate. So Iblis, shaitan. He's worshipping and worshipping, doing ibadah. Allah brings him to this higher station. He's with the angels. So obviously he's not messing around. He's got a high station. He's not a joke when it comes to his ibadah. We would say without argument that he's Allah's closest abd and servant at that point, right? Better than the angels. Angels are forced to do ibadat. Shaitan's not. Jinn have free will. He exercised it and it did ibadat over and over again, right? There's different numbers, but thousands and thousands of years, ibadat. More than probably any of us could ever do. He's doing it. He did it. Now think about this. He's done all of this ibadat, all of this worship, gained this high station, and then out of nowhere, forgive me, Nabi Adam, but this little lump of clay pops in, and he's like, oh, guess what? This is going to be the Khalifa. Now, let's put it in our own sort of framework here. All you capitalist pigs out here, right? You're working, right? You're hoping because your boss, your manager, your supervisor is like, this corporation has this thing called upward mobility, right? Or that game they play, right? Upward mobility. Yeah, you'll rise up the ranks. Don't worry. One day you can drive whatever, this car and have this parking spot, whatever it is, right? Yeah, you can rise up in this corporation. So imagine you're working, 5, 10, 15 years of putting in for the same company, overtime, ignoring your family, doing all this stuff, right? Put in all this work, and then all of a sudden, your boss tells you, hey, guess what? I hired another person, they're going to be your manager. It's like, okay. They bring in this person, like, yeah, they're just fresh out of college. Like, well, what? Fresh out of college, no work experience, they're going to be your manager. You'd say right away, hold on a second. I've been putting in here work for, right, over a decade, and this kid who has no experience, just out of college, you're going to make them my manager? You would throw a fit, wouldn't you? Like, this doesn't make sense. It's not rational. It's not logical. It makes no sense. So you tell me, is shaitan wrong in saying that I've been doing ibadat for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, all accepted, right? With an asterisk, obviously. I've been doing all this, and then this lump of clay, which doesn't even have a ruh, a soul yet, you're telling me this is the Khalifa on earth? I'm not saying we're taking Iblis aside, but is he being irrational? Not really. It's a very logical thing that he's thinking and saying. And he's not the first person to do this, or first creation to do this, because there's one other story that happens right before this. What's the first one that happens? Who's the first creation to make this same mistake? Before Iblis objects to Allah, who else, quote unquote, objected to Allah? The angels. Although technically it wasn't an objection, it was a questioning, but still. When the same thing is happening, the angels are being told, I'm making a human being, this creation, Adam, he will be the Khalifa. The angels say the same thing. Hold on a second. We, angels, we do your tasbih, we glorify you, we do takbir, all we can do is worship you. So Allah, if your whole purpose and goal is to have people manifest your names and worship you and sing your praise and glory and your light, well, that's what we do. So if that's what you want, why don't you put us there? This human thing, and again, there's different opinions for why they knew this, but this human that you want to create causes bloodshed, causes chaos, causes fasad. They're going to start killing one another. Why would you make that the Khalifa? And then what does Allah say? He's like, I know what you don't know. That's it. And the angels are like, okay, no problem, done. The angels are what? The angels don't have any jealousy. They're incapable of jealousy. They don't have any takabbur. There's no arrogance that's possible in them. There's no such thing as racism, right? No angel lives matter. It doesn't exist there either. Any of these human or jinn spiritual diseases can't exist in them. What are they? They're pure nur. Or in other words, they're pure aql. All they can do is be rational. That's all they can do. They're given information. They're literally like the best AI that's out there, right? I could make another dad joke right now, but I won't do it. I'm going to hold my tongue. I won't do another dad joke. I really want to, but I'm not going to do it. Okay. No, I can't. Come on, AI, and I said angel. Anyway, angel intelligence. Okay, anyway. Sorry. I'm so sorry about that. I apologize. Astaghfirullah Rabbi wa atubu ilayh. Okay. So that's all they're doing. Allah feeds them information, and it's input, output. That's all it is for them. Because of their, whatever inputs that they had, understanding about, number one, this clay, this Adam, this whatever human thing, and the nature of Allah, they're like, okay, we are the logical choice to be your Khalifa. This thing, this creation, this insan is going to mess everything up. Why would that be your Khalifa? Allah simply says, there is information that you don't have, which pretty much all AI. It's always going to have misinformation. That's the nature of AI, right? So angels, that's enough for them. Okay, I don't have the information, no problem. But for shaitan, it wasn't enough. This is one of the deeper meanings of this story of the malaika and shaitan. It's our aql is not going to understand every single thing that's out there. Our logic and our rationality is actually going to get in the way most of the time. Oh, this thing doesn't make sense to me. This moon sighting thing doesn't make sense. This chess ruling doesn't make sense. This inheritance thing doesn't make sense. Hijab thing, no, I don't get it. I've got an aql, I'm aqil, I'm intelligent, I'm rational. I was born in the West. I work for Fortune 500 companies. I know what I'm doing. I'm a smart man or woman. What does Allah know? What is this Quran 1400 years ago? This is what we end up doing nowadays, right? Maybe we don't say it in those arrogant ways, but that's how some of us think. And Allah very clearly says right there, first two stories, right in the beginning, it's your aql that's going to start stopping you and keeping you away. That aql will keep you away from tawheed and lead you to takfir. You won't see everything as a manifestation, an extension of Allah. You'll think of everything as separate. You won't see it in Allah's eyes and through His light. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. That's what we need to be doing. Not just saying, La ilaha illallah, that's it, my tawheed is done. There is no God but Allah. There's only one God. That's not tawheed, that's a beginning part, and now I have to do something else with it. To proclaim it, to maintain it, to perform it, to practice it, to constantly see, how does Allah see this thing? What does this look like to Allah's eyes? Obviously, metaphorically speaking, right? When Allah sees this incident, this tragedy, this good thing, this bad thing, this country, these people, this job, whatever it is, what does Allah see of this? So if that's how Allah sees it, I should be seeing it the same way. Well, how do I know what Allah, I don't know what Allah, I don't know what He sees. We don't have insight like that. Allah says, fine, I'll give you a bit more insight through the Quran. Allah says, this is how I see certain things in reality. And we say, okay, but we don't really understand the Quran. No problem, I'll send Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala. Say, okay, even though He explained everything, there's still going to be further issues that are there. No problem. I have other creations that see things through my eyes, and that's the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. They see things, say everything through Allah's eyes. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam says, "Ma ra'aytu shay'an illa wa ra'aytu Allah qablahu wa ma'ahu wa ba'dahu." Imam Ali says, I don't see anything except that Allah is before it, with it, and after it. He's seeing everything in the shade or the flavor or the color of Allah. That's the only way he sees it. And the same extension comes to Bibi Zainab alayhi salam. Ma ra'aytu illa jamila. I'm seeing everything as the beauty of Allah. That's the only way I see it. And you see what the rest, how they see things. This is what Tawheed looks like for us and how it should be for us. I want to be able to see the world and everything in reality through the eyes of the Ahlul Bayt. And the Ahlul Bayt taught all these principles to our ulama who have passed it down to us as well too. So we're not lost. We shouldn't be confused. All this stuff is there. But now we have to actually make an actual effort and practice, perform Tawheed. That's what Tawheed is. It's an action, it's a practice. It's something we need to do. Not just, I got the belief and now I'm done. I have to think in every single situation, what really is my divine duty here? With my purpose and goal going back to Allah, manifesting His names, being that extension and manifestation, mazhar of His light and reflection, what does that mean in this situation? Sometimes, it's not easy to figure out. There's a huge discussion in the books of our ulama about how to actually learn what is the right priority at what time. I don't want to go into details because it'll really extend this, this lecture tonight, but one example for you to think about. Typically, it's salat time, namaz time, adhan goes off. By default, all of us think that's the most important thing, right? Adhan goes off, awwal al-waqt, waqt al-fadila, first you have to go stop doing everything and go and pray. That's typically how many of us have been trained, right? The minute the adhan, I mean technically before the adhan you should be ready, but at the very least, once it's time, go pray. Right at the beginning you need to do that. Is that the situation, is that the case in every single circumstance? That no matter what, leave everything aside and then go pray right away? If not, then you're going to start losing those acha bacha points, those good boy and good girl points, that's it? Is that all it is? Were there situations where the Ahlul Bayt delayed their salah? Spoiler alert, yeah, they delayed. They did delay, yeah. Yes? So technically they didn't, from what I understand, maybe you've seen different history, they didn't delay in Karbala, but in other battles they did. In other battles, especially with Rasulullah, they did delay. So they actually prayed, well, maybe, inshallah, if we have time, we'll talk about the special salah, Salatul Khawf that they prayed during Dhuhr time, and then at Asr time when Imam Hussain alayhi salam was trying to read, that's when he became shaheed at that point, right? So he wasn't able to complete it at that point. Okay. But there's many things in our history books about that. About when is it actually okay to delay. I'll just share one quick story, inshallah, before we go on to the Masaib. If you can recite a salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So, you know, a lot of us have our own sort of idea about what Islamic priorities are. Even when people go to the Hawza, you know, like myself, I had a certain expectation of what is right, what is wrong, what is Islam, what is Shia Islam, what are priorities, what should be done in every single situation. So we take that idea and we project it onto everybody else we see. Right? That we expect that, okay, if it's, let's say you're hanging out with an alim and the adhan goes off, most people would expect the alim is going to just get up and go and pray right away. That's what people expect. Those of you who have sat with ulama know that that doesn't always happen, right? Especially if they're in the middle of eating good food, right? Then it doesn't happen. They're like, yeah, I got a couple bites left. We can wait. It's okay, no problem. So we had gotten there, starting off, right? How's the studies in school? Excited, and right, the class schedule and every school is a bit different, but generally it's the same, right? Maybe an hour or two after Fajr time, that's usually when classes will begin at most schools and most hawzat over there, and they last usually up until about Dhuhr time. That's typically every school schedule there. So I got there, and again, things change and shift with daylight savings, obviously, because they do it over there too. So when I first had gotten there, the way it had worked is our final class had ended maybe 10, 15 minutes or so before Dhuhr time, right? So classes would be finished, people would start getting ready for Dhuhr Asr, and then we would go pray together, right? Once the time shifted, now everything moved. So when everything moved, class time went over and bled into salat time. Now me, fake muttaqi, fake taqwa, I was like, okay, that must mean class is gonna end early, which I got really happy about, right? Shouldn't tell you that out loud, but all right, class is going to be cut down now, so we got to end class and we all got to run for salah when it's adhan time, right? That's what I expect. So that first time, sat down in that class, I'm looking at the clock, I'm waiting, I'm like, yeah, class is almost done, right? Adhan goes off, it gets muted. Some of the teachers would just wait for the adhan to finish and they would continue. I was like, whoa, what's going on over here? What are these kafirs doing? What's happening? I got really confused. And then they just continued on, class would finish, and then they'd give another maybe 5-10 minutes, and then they would go pray Dhuhr Asr and Jama'ah. Like, what's going on over here? We delayed by like 15, 20, almost 30 minutes. What's happening? Now, I had to be careful, you know, about what I said, but later, one of our teachers explained that. He said in some of our riwayat, in some of our books, it's mentioned that there's a few exceptional reasons to delay salah. A few exceptional reasons, according to some ulama. And they say one of the reasons is ta'aleem and ta'allum. If you're in the middle of education, don't break it, finish it, continue it, and then go pray salah. And again, as long as you're generally within the initial time, as long as you don't super delay it, then it's okay, it's not a big deal. And I was like, I'd never heard this in my whole life. I was the one waiting to get a nice tupper sandwich every time I didn't get up right away for adhan and go pray. Like, this is so different. But again, it's because we didn't learn the priorities from the eyes of the Ahlul Bayt, the way that Allah wants it. Again, us, those who are parents, those who have kids, young children, a child is crying, a baby's crying. It's salat time, it's namaz time. Is the priority, well, let the kid cry, I've got to pray. That's more important. We see that in the seerah of the Ahlul Bayt? Not really. In many instances, you see the Ahlul Bayt choosing children, showing love and adoration and taking care of children over things like salah. There's a very interesting story that I want to share about this, but because we're over time, I'll wait till tomorrow, inshallah, and I'll share it there. It's a story about Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam getting ready to head for salah, but he didn't actually show up to the masjid on time. So what took place over there is a very, very interesting story. Inshallah, if Allah gives us tawfiq, we'll share that at the beginning of the majlis tomorrow night, inshallah. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. It's about priorities. And you see what differentiates those who were on haqq and those who were on batil, those who were doing and making the right choice in Karbala versus those who were making the wrong choice in Karbala was about what? Priorities. There was fake priorities, and then there was real priorities that Allah had commanded, that Rasulullah had commanded, that the Ahlul Bayt had commanded. We begin now in these nights to dedicate each and every night to a different personality, a different Shaheed of Karbala. And yes, technically, every single one of them became Shaheed on Ashura, on the 10th. But obviously we cannot discuss all of the details on that afternoon typically, or at least it's not our culture to do so. So what do we do? In order to do ihtiram and honor them, we start to divide up over these 10 nights and spend a night on one of those personalities. And usually we begin by going through the non-Bani Hashim, the ones who were not descendants of Rasulullah, the ones who were not from the family of the Ahlul Bayt, those who were just companions. And there were some companions who had started their journey with Imam Hussein from the beginning, from Medina. Some joined from Mecca, some joined along the way. But we don't begin with any of them typically as well. We begin with arguably the companion that I think most of us should be able and should try to connect to more than anybody else in Karbala. Someone who was on the wrong path up until the final moment. And he was given that final choice, and in that final choice finally saw what the real priority was and made the right decision. Yes, Hur. We all know the story as Imam Hussein alayhi salam and his companions and his family were making their way, trying to get to Kufa. They were stopped outside of Kufa by Hur, who had brought with him 1,000 soldiers. He was ordered by Ibn Ziyad, la'anatullah alayh, to make sure Imam Hussein did not reach Kufa, and also that Imam Hussein did not turn back towards Medina. So his job was not to engage him, not to fight him, to either bring him to Ibn Ziyad if possible, or just accompany Imam Hussein and wherever else he was going. These were the orders given to Hur. When the two armies finally came together, Imam Hussein, the first thing he notices, and he tells his companions, is that it looks like they're thirsty. It looks like they've made a long journey and it seems they've run out of water. All right, now look at this foreshadowing. Go, give them some water. Give their horses water, give their army men, give all of them, give the soldiers water. The companions would go one by one, quench the thirst of the horses of an enemy army, quench the thirst of the soldiers of the enemy army. Then after all of this, you see salat time comes, right? Because now Imam Hussein says, let's see what's happening, let's stop here, right, for salat. So dhuhr time they stop. They put up the tents. Salat time comes. When Imam Hussein sees Hur, he says, I'm going to lead my companions and my family in salah. Would you like to go to your own camp and go lead your family and your companions and your soldiers in salah? He says, no, I'll pray behind you. It seems strange, right? This person who's come, right? This is technically his enemy. He's ordered to stop this person, but he's praying behind him. Right there, you see his priorities were different than others. Salah finishes there. Time passes, Asr time comes. The same thing happens. Imam Hussein leads everyone in Salah. Now, Imam Hussein is getting ready to leave. He says, now I'm going. Then Hur says, no, I've been ordered. He tells him what he's been ordered to do. Imam Hussein says, look, I was told to come here by the people of Kufa. I have these letters. Hur says, look, I don't have any of these letters. I didn't write anything. These are my orders. You cannot go back to Medina. I can't allow you to go to Kufa. But anywhere else you go, then I can accompany you like that. And that's because I was not ordered to fight you, so I won't do that. But Imam Hussein says, look, I'm going to go where I want to go. You have no right to stop me. And he began to move. And this is where Hur now grabs the reins of Imam Hussein's horse. Now, this is it's tough for us to understand this culture, but this is a very, very aggressive move to do. Very harsh thing to do. And when this happens, usually we're taught about the Ahlul Bayt being these manifestations of love and mercy and kindness. Imam Hussein could have responded very gently and warmly and kindly to him. But you see, Imam Hussein right away aggressively tells Hur, may your mother weep and mourn over you. Basically saying that may your mother be ashamed of you. May you die from what you're doing, and may your mother cry over that. This is how Imam Hussein is insulting somebody like Hur. Now we don't know. We don't understand the hikmah of the Ahlul Bayt like this. Imam Hussein is testing him. He's giving him that fork in the road to see which way is he going to go. And we all know the response that Hur gives, because he knows these priorities. He says, if any other Arab, anyone else, had spoken to me in this way, if I was in your position and any other person had spoken to me like this, he's like, I swear I would have said the exact same thing. I would have said that, yes, may your mother weep over you like this. He says, how can I speak to you like this when I know your mother is Fatima? How can I say these same words to you when I know and I have respect and honor and ihtiram for your mother Fatima? I can't speak to you like this. Hussein says, he's passed the first test now. He sees. He says, look, I can't harm you, but if you want to go somewhere else, then I can accompany you. That I won't harm you. And this is now where Hur basically leads him now, where they finally make their way to Karbala. And now we fast forward. We go to the Asr of Ashur, where now the fighting has begun. And Hur, as he sees, not the Asr, in the beginning of the fighting, when Hur is outside still on the enemy side and he's looking out, and he sees everything before him, he sees his own army, he sees the enemy soldiers, he sees Hussein's camp, he sees everything that's there, and he realizes on one side, I see Jannah, I see Hussein, I see the grandson of Rasulullah, I see the son of Fatima, the son of Ali. He says, I see Jannah there. And he looks back at his own army, he says, I see Jahannam, I see hellfire over here. He says, how can I go towards Jahannam when I know which way Jannah lies? So now, he begins to move towards the camp of Imam Hussein, but he recognizes that I'm the one who brought him here in the first place. I can't just go and switch sides. I'm the cause of Hussein doing this. He says, I've done this to him. I've brought him this heartache. So Hur decides, I have to come to him as I'm a prisoner. So he takes his arms as a prisoner and he clasps them on his head. He puts his head down and begins making his way towards Hussein. Some people in Imam Hussein's camp, when they see him, they're confused by this move. They don't understand why Hur would do something like this, but Imam Hussein understands what's happening. He says, allow him to come, allow him to speak to me. And some of our riwayat indicate when Hur finally makes his way there, he collapses off of his horse at the feet of Hussein and begins begging him and crying. He says, Ya Aba Abdullah, forgive me for what I have done. I am the one who's brought you to a situation like this. I am the reason for your hardship. I am the reason why there's all these thousands of soldiers now facing you like this. Is there any way you can make me maghfoor and forgiven? Is there any way you can find a space in your heart to forgive me for what I've done here? Hussein is a person of rahmah and mercy. He says, of course, Huri anta maghfoor, of course you are forgiven. He says, would you allow me to fight on your behalf as well too? Will you allow me to be one of the first to go out and to defend your honor and to fight for you? He says, yes, Hur, I will allow you. And then he says, but before you go out, you have to go and give salams and get permission from the women that are in these tents as well too. So Hur now, after saying his salams to everyone else, begins to make his way to the women of the Ahlul Bayt, to the females that were there, the Ahl Haram. And as he goes there, he gives them their salams and he begins complaining and crying as well, telling them, I'm sorry for bringing you here. The reason all of your children are crying, Al-Atash, Al-Atash, the reason they're thirsty is because of me. Is there any way you can forgive me for bringing this bala on you? I am the one who's given you this burden. Can you find it in your hearts to forgive me? And they have been trained by people like Fatima and Zainab. So they say, of course, we have forgiven you. Hur, you can go now in peace. He says, no, but that's not enough for me. I have one final request from you. This is the final request that I have from you. He says, all of you noble ladies, on Yawm al-Qiyamah, you will be there with our lady, our noble lady Fatima. And I know that you will have a chance to complain to her about what I've done over here. My only khahish, my only request is that you do not complain to Fatima and tell her what I've done over here, because I can't look at Fatima in her eyes when I can think about what I've done to you. Please do not do this shikayat and do not complain to Fatima for what I've done. I said, do not worry, Hur, we have already forgiven you. We will not complain to Fatima for what you have done. You are forgiven now. Please go and give your life for Islam and for Hussein. Hur now makes his way out to the battlefield. He fights valiantly. He finally succumbs to his wounds and he falls down. The soldiers run out, they grab his body and bring him back so that Imam Hussein can see him for one last time. He takes the head of a Hur, he places it on his lap. He removes the sand that's on the head of the forehead of Hur, and he says, Hur, your mother named you properly. She gave you a good name. Anta Hur fi dunya wal akhirah. You are free in this world and the next world. على لعنة الله على قوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون رضا بقضائه وتسليما لأمره. ماتم حسين.
سلام غازی سلام غازی وفا کا تو ہے امام غازی سلام غازی سلام غازی وفا کا تو ہے امام غازی سلام غازی سلام غازی وفا کا تو ہے امام غازی سلام غازی سلام غازی وفا کا تو ہے امام غازی جگہ جگہ ہے علم گواہی دلوں پہ تیری ہے بادشاہی جگہ جگہ ہے علم گواہی دلوں پہ تیری ہے بادشاہی لبوں پہ تیرا ہی نام غازی وفا کا تو ہے امام غازی سلام غازی سلام غازی وفا کا تو ہے امام غازی تیرے علم کا ہے ہم پہ سایہ علم پہ سایہ ہے پنجتن کا تیرے علم کا ہے ہم پہ سایہ علم پہ سایہ ہے پنجتن کا بلند تیرا مقام غازی وفا کا تو ہے امام غازی سلام غازی سلام غازی وفا کا تو ہے امام غازی علم کا جب سے ہوا ہے سایہ زمین کربو بلا پہ مولا علم کا جب سے ہوا ہے سایہ زمین کربو بلا پہ مولا تیرا ہے چلتا نظام غازی وفا کا تو ہے امام غازی سلام غازی سلام غازی وفا کا تو ہے امام غازی تو با وفا ہے تو لافتہ ہے بے آسروں کا تو آسرا ہے تو با وفا ہے تو لافتہ ہے بے آسروں کا تو آسرا ہے جہاں میں چرچا ہے عام غازی وفا کا تو ہے امام غازی سلام غازی سلام غازی وفا کا تو ہے امام غازی حسین مولا سے پیار کرنا حسین پر جان سارے کرنا حسین مولا